Juan Alsace has been an American Foreign Service officer for 29 years. He's worked all over the world in some of the hottest spots, Iraq, Lebanon, and Kazakhstan, to name just three. Last August, he was named the United States government's Consul General in Toronto. He's in the Windsor, Detroit area this week, his first official visit to the region since he was appointed to his new position, and Juan Alsace joins me in the studio. Good morning.
Good morning, Tony. Thanks for having me.
What brings you to Windsor?
Well, I've, as you said, I've just been here for about 4.5 months, and the U.S.-Canada relationship is terrific. It's probably the closest in the world. And part of that relationship has to do, amongst other things, with sort of the trade and the border issues. And we have $759 billion in annual trade between the United States and Canada, but works out to about $2 billion a day. And so much of that one of the particular nodes of that, probably the most important node, is the Windsor-Detroit area. So I'm here to talk to folks, learn a little bit about what Windsor and Detroit are doing in terms of the trade relationship. I've had some conversations with, for example, Mayor Dilkins. I met yesterday with Matt Marchand, who's the president of the Windsor-Essex Chamber of Commerce. I met with my counterpart, the Canadian CG on the Detroit side, Doug George. So having a chance to talk to those folks, I'm meeting with some business people. I met with some business people on the Detroit side yesterday. Right after this conversation with you, I'm off to a business roundtable with Canadian business people.
You bring the perspective of the United States government to this region. What are the big issues that affect Windsor and Detroit?
Well, principally, and in my conversations, we're trying to figure out how to make what is already a terrific trade relationship even better. So there, for example, in my conversations with the mayor yesterday, we talked a little bit about visas and workers moving from one side of the border to the other, and how to accelerate that process and make it smoother. In my conversations with business people, both on the U.S. side, and I suspect today when I have this breakfast with these folks here, that we're going to talk a little bit about how to make that the integration and harmonization of regulations a little bit smoother, again, so that trucks and people moving across the border, produce, products, is a way that makes it better for both sides.
You mentioned trade earlier. I'd like to talk to you briefly about the Trans-Pacific Partnership, or the TPP. Canadians are divided on this, and some of the business community, including the CEO of Ford Canada, have spoken against it, saying it will harm our auto industry. What would you say to Windsorites nervous about the TPP?
I'd say that the overall, the importance of TPP, which has been negotiated over several years, not just between the United States and Canada, but with 12 other countries, is important for Canada and for the United States because it allows us, both of our countries, access to the growing Asia markets, and that's important for Canada, and the United States, which are both export countries. And as you know, with the weekend loonie, you've got terrific opportunities for export, not just to the United States, but to Asia as well. It also, the TPP is going to eliminate approximately 18,000 taxes around the world from all the partners that are involved in this. So again, it allows better access to Canadian goods, U.S. goods, to some of these markets. So, I know that Canadians are going to take a look at it, just as our Congress and American people are going to take a look at on the U.S. border, on the U.S. side. Ultimately, it's up for Canada to decide what it's going to do with it, but we really can't imagine any circumstance in which Canada won't, because we're talking about 40% of global GDP involved in here, so I think it's going to happen.
Just to be clear on this is subject to ratification not just by our federal government, but by yours as well.
Yes, exactly.
The new Gordie Howe International Bridge is on the minds of many in the region, particularly those who rely on efficient transportation. How great a priority is this bridge in the eyes of your government?
It's very important, and I've had a chance. One of the other reasons I'm here was to learn about what this issue is on the. I guess you guys are calling it the Gordie Howe Bridge now. It's the new international trade crossing. Mm-hmm. But it's important. We're fully supportive of it. We've several of Department of State, Department of Homeland Security, Department of Transportation. Several U.S. agencies have all been involved in making sure that from our side that this happens. We're committed to it. We understand the Canadian government is committed to it. I listened to your conversations with Mr. Duncan. It's clear to us that the Canadians want to see it move forward. So we're very positive about it.
Certainly, the border between our two countries has thickened dramatically since 9/11. Security is much tighter than it used to be, and I think we all understand why. But do you anticipate that to be the case as we go forward?
I think all of us on both sides of the border want to see that you got to find that balance, Tony, between trade and commerce and security. Beyond the Border Initiative that was signed by President Obama and Prime Minister Harper has put together a lot of positives to make sure that harmonization of regulations that we can trusted traveler programs that allow people to move and products to move back and forth are done in an efficient way, but in a secure way. So I suspect that we'll continue to work on ways to make sure that that balance is found in an appropriate way.
I know you grew up in Buffalo, a border city. What does that mean to you in terms of the job you have today?
Well, I'm planning on doing a lot of things with the Buffalo area. As I told you before we started, that my mom and my sister are still down there so from a personal basis, it's a lot of fun. But there's several things. There's two really specific initiatives that I hope to do in my 3 years as Consul General here. One of them has to do with educational exchanges. Surprisingly, and I'm going to be at the University of Windsor later on this morning as well. Surprisingly, there's not many Canadian students who go to U.S. Universities, and vice versa. Part of it has to do with familiarity. When you're an exchange student, you're thinking to yourself, I'm going to go to Europe, I'm going to go to China. Why not go to the United States? Or why not have American students come to Canada, especially with cities like Toronto, which are very diverse and international? The other thing I'd like to work on is clean water technologies. And I'm learning some things here as well. There are people in Ontario, reserves, who don't have access to clean water. So I'm figuring out ways that perhaps we can work with academia, the province, and business to try to figure out ways to do this.
And just so that we clearly understand, you are a United States diplomat, and you are one of 7 consul generals serving in this country. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And you're responsible for the Ontario region.
Ontario is my bailiwick.
I know you're a busy fellow. I appreciate your time this morning.
Thank you so much, Tony.
Thank you so much. That is Juan Alsace, the United States Consul General in Toronto. Today is the last day of his 3-day visit to Windsor, Essex. This morning he'll be attending a business roundtable breakfast hosted by the Windsor Essex Economic Development Corporation.